we are talking about today, Session 2 in First Steps Conversations. In Session 2, we will be talking about freedom. Everybody wants to be free, but sometimes we misconstrue what that freedom is all about. There are two lessons that I've learned about freedom. First of all, freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do, not just what you want to do. Let me say this again. Freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do, not just what you want to do. And when you begin to realize that, oftentimes in the midst of our temptation, we begin thinking through, well, I can just do this once or twice. Nobody will know. And then when you do what you know that you shouldn't do, and perhaps you even think that nobody will notice, people do notice. And it doesn't turn out the way that you expected it to. And so when you consider temptation, the ability to say yes to the things that you should say yes to and no to the things that you should say no to, two lessons that you should remember. Freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do, not just what you want to, and also magnify the consequences. I remember a long time ago, I ran into an old man. Now, I'm not talking about myself. This was a long time ago. And to me, it looked like an old man. I began talking to him. I was thinking, a long time ago, he was 30 or 40 years old. And as I was entering into my discussion, I realized that he was only 19 or 20 years old. And the question, as I was asking him, is that kind of like, what has gone on in your life? What has been the difficulties that you've gone through? And his note to me was simply this, is that one time I thought I could take drugs, and it was fun. I enjoyed myself. It became easier to take drugs the next time, and I began a lifestyle where I couldn't say no. And that's the lesson that we needed to understand. This young man thought he could be free doing the things that he wanted to do. And before long, magnify the consequences, he was held captive by the very thing that he thought would give him enjoyment in life. What you need to understand, to say no to the things that you should say no to, and yes to the things that you should say yes to, it is a battle of the mind. And as you look at this particular diagram, you'll see stage 1 is the battle of the mind, and stage 2 is sinful action. When you're saying yes or no to something, and then it will be out there in front of you, and you'll make the decision in your mind. There will be a moment of temptation. Well, you will have to say yes or no. So let me give you some encouragement on how to work this through. First of all, it's the battle of the mind. There will come a time where you will be enticed. There will be an evil desire, something that's thinking through your mind. And the Bible says that's sin. If you entertain it in your mind, that's sin. And if you have sin in your mind, the next thing that will happen is stage 2, sinful action. There will come a time, you keep thinking about it, well, that sin that's in your mind will be full grown. There will be an opportunity, and you'll just find yourself doing it. And perhaps afterwards you will begin thinking, why did I just do that? I never thought that I would, but you did. And that is because you've lost the battle of the mind. You began sinning in your mind, and then when the opportunity presented itself, that's when the sin came about. And the end result of action of sin is death. Let me just give you this illustration. You're thinking about money, and you think about money, and you think about money, and you think about money. And I know this is a simple illustration, but all of a sudden, it's in your mind, and this opportunity, through the enticement of a friend, is to rob a bank, which you do. You rob a bank. Well, in the course of that action, somebody is killed, somebody's life is taken, and so you could see it's the battle of the mind, it's the opportunity, it's the action presents itself, and then there's even death. You could winnow that down to even less of any particular sin that you do. It starts here in the mind, and then it comes into action, and then there's a death in relationships, either with God, others, or self. The battle of the mind, learning to say yes and no. Realize this, that freedom is the ability to do what you want to do, not what you think you should be able to do. And also, magnify the consequences, because in this world, what you don't think will happen as a result of your actions will actually occur.